Welcome, everyone. We're here with Julie Bonapace and Gail Tully of Spinning Babies. I'm Gail. This is Julie. Julie,
Hello.
thanks for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here.
Julie Bonapace is a pain specialist and the main author of the Canadian Pain Management Guideline for the Society of Obstetrics and Gynecologists for Canada, the SOGC. She's a researcher and childbirth educator who helps parents and healthcare professionals gain a better understanding of pain management, mechanisms, and techniques to work with the sensations of childbirth. She has extensive experience training healthcare professionals throughout the world on natural methods to help parents experience pleasure, satisfaction, and safety in birth. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here talking with us about childbirth and how to improve things. Your method is really brilliant, and you do so much to help ease the fear of pain in childbirth. That's one of the number one fears.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help us understand what your method is and how you came to it?
Sure. When I start explaining the story behind how I developed this method, I think that I must be the only one in the world who came this way through to the process of birth. I used to help parents divorce. So I was a mediator negotiating divorces for the Ministry of Justice in Quebec. And through that work, when I questioned parents, what is difficult for you? Where are you experiencing, where did you start having all these difficulties? And they'd often say, well, it was the birth of a child. Having a child created stress, a lot of changes in our life, a transition that was difficult. And, we just grew apart. And men would often tell me they felt left out of the experience. They felt they didn't have an active role to play. And women would tell me that they often felt overwhelmed, too many things to do, had to take care of everything and their partner. And they just said, well, it'd be a lot easier if we divorce. And that's a bit sad. And when I started contemplating on this, my idea really was to strengthen the couple. Because we have scientific evidence that shows us that when parents work together during pregnancy and birth, the father who participates will be more present after birth because he's part of the experience. He doesn't feel like he's a bystander. He feels like he's an actor. And there's also evidence that shows that when the father, the partner, provides and takes care of the child, he's less at risk of being part of a divorce. So really the program that I put together was something to strengthen the couple. And of course, if I had told parents, well, you need to come to my classes because you're at risk, I wouldn't be very popular, right? Who really cares about that? Because they're feeling like they're on their honeymoon, things are great, it's pregnancy and all is good. So I addressed the greatest fear that most parents had, which was pain. And that's the way I made my way into pain. And it kind of happened by mistake. It was kind of a consequence of the way I live. So for people who know me, they know I practice extreme sports. So I do everything from skydiving, whitewater canoeing, rock climbing, kite surfing, and everything that really creates a lot of fear and of adventure. And through the practice of all of these extreme sports, that's where I learned really to focus. And I think that when you learn how to focus, you focus on what you're feeling, right? So you're guided by what you're feeling and you're focusing your attention. You're not letting your attention fly all over the place and have these negative thoughts. Oh, I'm going to hurt myself. This is dangerous. This is bad. So you focus your attention. And I started practicing yoga when I was 16. So I've been doing it for many years now. And through yoga, you learn to breathe, to move, to live in your body. You learn to relax your body. You learn to trust and to visualize. So a lot of my method was put together through my experience and also in researching all over the world. How do women in Northern Africa work with their sensations? How do people do it in Asia or in South America? And what really helped maybe distinguish the model that I developed is that I had the advantage of studying with a neurophysiologist, so a PhD, and we did research in a pain management lab where we studied non-pharmacological methods, so everything that's natural. And when I first started my graduate studies with him, he said, I told him I was training parents, and he said, well, tell me what you teach the parents. So I'd say, well, I teach them how to create light massage on the painful areas. It can be on the back or the abdomen, or stroking the legs, or whatever painful area they have. He said, oh, isn't that interesting? That's called the gate control theory. So there's a neurophysiologic mechanism that says that when you caress the painful area, you'll be blocking part of the nociceptive, so the painful signal. And then I told him, well, I teach parents how to focus their attention, how to be mindful, how to pay attention to the thoughts that they're having, how to manage and work with their emotions. And he said, oh, isn't that interesting? That's called controlling the higher centers of the brain. And when you manage to work with the higher centers of your brain, focusing your attention, you produce endorphins, which are a neurotransmitter. They're also a hormone, but a neurotransmitter that blocks part of the signal. And then I told him, well, there's something else that I do, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable telling you about this, because I teach dads how to create a second pain, how to create a second pain during a rush or during a contraction. And he was like, oh, I'm mystified that you found this. So this is called the diffuse noxious inhibitory control. So it's a mechanism that we have in our body. Whereas when you create a second painful sensation, a second pain somewhere while you're experiencing first pain, the brain will want to understand the nature of the second pain. So it releases a huge amount of endorphins, this natural substance that will block the first signal, so the brain can pay attention to the second signal.
This is interesting. When in the 1970s, when I was giving birth to my first child, we were taught to put a comb across here and clutch this during a contraction.
Absolutely.
Which wasn't comfortable, but it seemed to work. I did it for a few contractions when it was necessary.
Absolutely. So you see that what you're saying is exactly a way of creating the second pain. So in Northern Africa, the Algerian women, they put a rock in their hand and they squeeze the rock. So by squeezing the rock, they create a second pain in their hand, and this produces the endorphins that reduce the sensations all over the body except in the hand. So you'll say, well, it's uncomfortable in my hand, but it's a lot more comfortable than before you were creating the second pain. So the key message in the work that I do is, the first message is, we are hardwired to give birth. And because of this hardwiring, we have the resources. We just need to learn to activate these resources. And over the years, we've kind of lost, most everyone has lost their ability to work naturally with pain, because we often have pills that we go to instead of questioning ourselves. Oh, why do I have a headache? Well, maybe I haven't had anything to drink all day. Maybe I'm just really tired and it's time to relax. So we kind of have this quick remedy, which is take a pill and forget about it, right? So don't even pay attention to what your body is telling you. And in birth, well, we have the epidural. So I work in countries where there's a 96% rate of epidurals. And I actually questioned some of the midwives that I was working with. This is in Switzerland. And I asked them, well, what happened to the 4% of women who didn't have the epidural? What happened to them? And they told me, well, we didn't have time to give it to them. So basically, it has nothing to do with what the mother wanted, right? Because it had to do with the practices, what healthcare providers, want and feel more comfortable with. And I can
Julie, it seems like you're talking about, if we put our focus, where do we put our focus with our mind when you talk about the higher mental centers? And if our focus is on the pain, then we want to manage what we put our attention on. And as managers, there's also the business model of birth, and the epidural fits into that. We don't have to have a relationship with the mother. We don't have to know what her mind is. We don't have to know what her desires are.
Mm-hmm.
We can manage her pain by the epidural. Because women then don't have anybody talking to them about what their bodies are capable of doing, it seems like that's the only option.
Yeah, it is. And that's why in the Canadian guideline, if ever we get it published, because the process is a bit long here, but in the guideline, what we're saying is that all women are entitled to non-pharma first. And I work with healthcare providers all over the world. And I can tell you, it's an easy go-to for healthcare providers, the epidural, because the woman is quiet.
Sure.
So she's not bothering anyone and she's quiet. But we know there are a lot of consequences, both for the baby and for the mom. And you just have to look at the scientific evidence. I'm not the one who says it. The scientific evidence shows that there are more cesareans for fetal distress, there are more forceps and more vacuum extractions. So, and more lesions to the perineum. So I think that we need to get back to the basics, right? I was working in Morocco a couple of weeks ago. And you might not know, but in Morocco, women are told that having sex is very painful. So they're told that, you know, you don't choose your partner most of the time. You don't choose when and how. So you don't express your desires and your needs, and you're going to suffer. It's going to hurt. So by telling women that, they're expecting pain. And when they have sex, they experience pain because they're not lubricating, because they're not choosing, because they're not moving, because they're not doing what they need to do to be stimulated and to enjoy it. Well, we're in the same paradigm today. We're in the exact same thing in birth.
Yes.
We're conditioned to believe that birth is painful. So you ask anyone in Western countries, what word you associate with birth? And they won't say life, happiness, ecstasy. They're going to say pain. Everyone expects pain. And so because we're so conditioned to experience pain, that as soon as we experience something, we say that's pain, and we focus on it, and we hear all the drama stories from everyone, and we just increase it. So we do everything that makes the sensation become stronger. And there's also everything that we do in the medical environment that increases this signal. So when you have a woman who's induced, you're not going to have the same type of contractions because the induction will have an effect on her hormones. And the hormones are also a super tool that we have to create comfort in birth. Yeah. So if you're inducing labor, if you're rupturing membranes, if you're not letting women eat and drink, you'd be surprised how many countries in the world they don't let women eat and drink. And who would go for a 10-hour marathon or a run or a hike in the woods without eating or drinking? It makes no sense.
There's a recent study that just came out that said women that take glucose pills in labor have a lower cesarean rate. Well, these are women that have been starved for over 24 hours. Their bodies need some fuel.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, that's the type of science that we do. We compare bad with worse. And then you need to compare physiology with the interventions, right? Yes. So it's like, well, use your common sense. And we also have, and that's why I give parents, when I train parents, I give them the meta-analysis, the data that shows that there are no benefits to starving women. So we got to stop that. But if a woman is starving or if she can't move because she's monitored, now we also know she's not supposed to be monitored continuously. So all of that will increase the signal. And of course, women have harder time to manage with their sensations because there are many things like rupturing the membranes. It's going to accelerate, but it's also going to increase the nociceptive because the painful signal because of the increased pressure on the cervix. And what's really interesting with the work that you're doing is that you're saying, let's position this baby in an optimal way. So it's going to ease the baby's birth, and it's also going to ease the sensations, right? Because it's going to make birth shorter.
Especially the way we go about helping the baby into position, which is by the woman's own physiology. Not by mechanical means, but by the woman's physiology, understanding it. Releasing tension in the shortened muscles of the pelvic floor, for instance, and helping them be longer, then the baby has less to press against and the pelvic floor opens more easily.
So Gail, there's something else that I wanted to share with you, and it has to do with the emotions. So we know that, you know, the emotions that you live will impact the sensations that you'll have. And that if you're experiencing fear and a lot of anxiety, it's going to increase your signals, so your nociceptive or your painful signals. Yeah. And I think that it's really important that no matter what we do in birth, that women feel safe and supported. And that's why we feel it's so important that the partners, or at least someone, a doula or someone, be there to support the women continuously. And a group of scientists and I, we published about a year and a half ago a meta-analysis, which is a very high quality study about what non-pharmacological methods really work best. And what we did is we pulled together the techniques that were related to one mechanism. So we pulled together everything that has to do with light massage, and another, we pulled together the painful, the second pain, and then the control of the mind. And what we demonstrated is that when women feel zen, when they're calm, when they're safe, when they feel safe, they have better births. And this goes to show that the emotional, psychological state in which a woman, a mom, is during her birth will really impact how she's going to live the experience, but also how the baby's going to be born. So we need to remember that you can give an epidural to a woman and it's not going to stop suffering. So suffering is the emotional component, and just addressing the biology, you're missing a huge chunk, and it's that chunk that will impact how the moms and the partners are going to live the experience and how the baby is going to live that experience.
Wow. Oh, Julie, that's so beautiful. Such an important message for our whole world, because it's so key. It's so profound and so simple.
Mm.
And as we speak now to parents expecting their child, we're also speaking to providers of birth services who have businesses to take their messages.
Right.
What would you like to tell those business owners of birth businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Something that's been key for your success in bringing this message forward to the Canadian government, who is cooperating with you to bring this message forward. This is amazing what you're doing.
Well, sometimes I think that what really helps is community. Mm-hmm. And community is finding people who are like-minded, people who share the same message, the same convictions, the same passion, and that we work together. And that's what I love about Birth Your Dreams, the group that we have with B School. What we've learned with Marie Forleo is community. And community is all of us pulling our resources together and working together. Because sometimes, let's face it, our field is pretty discouraging. It's pretty discouraging because there are some people who make huge amount of money, huge amount of abuse and power in our field. I mean, huge in every country. And then there's all these people like we're these ants that are working, we're working, and we're doing our best to help and to support parents in the world and help these babies be born in a safe and happy environment. Yeah. And yet everyone, we're struggling. We're like, oh boy, like we need to do a lot. So the message for me really is, let's keep on working together, both for the ability to get the message out that birth is safe, birth can be happy, and birth can be pleasurable and satisfying. So let's get that message out, and let's support each other in making, in creating jobs and opportunities for the people who work with us on the same journey.
Oh, that's beautiful. So come into unity in community. It's that unified sharing that makes us more powerful together.
Yeah.
Like molecules taking our message.
Absolutely.
Chemically through our planet. Julie, thank you so much. Thank you for the Bonapace method. Thank you for sharing with your government, with me at Spinning Babies, and with everyone that you're doing research and reporting. You're just fantastic.
I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.